I'm John Wesley. I'm known as the founder of Methodism, and I will be your virtual host for this celebration video today. Elkton United Methodist Church celebrates its 225th anniversary this weekend, and as we do, it is important to understand the church's history, from the beginnings of Methodism in the United States colonies to the church that it is today. Come with me now as we explore the history of our church, hear from members of our congregation, and look forward to what the future holds for our next 225 years. Thank you for inviting me. In the late 1700s, as a young British Anglican, I started a movement of faithful Christians seeking to be not only people of the word and worship, but seeking those who were committed to reaching out with their faith to a hurting and hungry world. As an Anglican priest, I felt somewhat restricted by their ways. I needed a more personal faith. I needed a faith that was put into action and felt compelled to take the Gospels into the streets, into prisons, out into farms and villages. That didn't go over too well with the powers that be. Nonetheless, I persisted. I started small group meetings in homes where people met, prayed together, studied together, reached out in mission together, and regularly checked in with each other on the state of their souls. Somewhere along the way, my thoughts turned to the American colonies, so I came over and checked things out. Later on, I sent emissaries to plant seeds of Methodism, and I sent them to this area, the northeast and mid-Atlantic parts of our country, which is why we're known as the cradle of Methodism. These emissaries, like Francis Asbury and George Whitefield, went from place to place, preaching the good news wherever they could, to whomever would listen.
For more than 235 years, Barrett's Chapel outside Frederica has stood tall among the flat landscape of southern Kent County, Delaware. It has also stood the test of time as a landmark in the history of Methodism.
We sometimes call it the Independence Hall of Methodism.
Barrett's Chapel was built in 1780 as a meeting hall for the growing Methodist movement that was started in England by John and Charles Wesley. Francis Asbury and other lay preachers were sent to the colonies to spread the Methodist message.
They started some small Methodist societies over here and wrote back to Wesley and said, we want Methodist preachers. So he sent 8 preachers, 2 at a time, over several years period, the most famous one being Francis Asbury, who landed in America and started circulating and carrying the message to any place that they could. When the Revolutionary War broke out, all of them except Francis Asbury and one other man went back to England.
In fact, Asbury took safe haven on Delmarva.
He felt very much at home here.
Then, in 1784, when the war was over, John Wesley sent Thomas Coke to America to find Asbury and discuss the future of American Methodism. On Sunday, November 14, 1784, Coke came to Barrett's Chapel and was invited to preach. During the sermon, Asbury arrived.
In the middle of the service, the story is he came in the back door. Asbury walked in the door in the middle of Coke's sermon, effectively interrupting the sermon. The story is the reports came down out of the pulpit and the two embraced, and he went back up in the pulpit and finished his sermon.
It was during this service the sacraments of baptism and communion were administered for the first time in America by ordained Methodist clergy.
It was really started here. It became a church here. This is where Methodism became a church.
Barrett's Chapel continued to be a popular Methodist meeting place with seating for more than 500 people.
It was built on the main highway through Delaware. What we know as Route 1 was there in the 18th century. Although actually it was out here where the driveway is. So that's the front of the building. That was facing the main highway.
But as the nearby town of Frederica grew, so did the need for worship space closer to the people. The last congregation to meet here dissolved in 1956. The building was eventually purchased by the Methodist Conference to be preserved as an historic site. The chapel itself has been preserved to reflect its original design, with a few minor changes.
Originally, the pulpit was high up on the wall, and it was lowered in the 1800s. One thing that really interests them are these benches that they sit on in here. They're very uncomfortable. They were made by the undertaker down in Frederica. between 1820 and 1840.
A vestry or smaller meeting room behind the chapel was relocated when unmarked graves were discovered in its original location. But to many around the country, Barrett's will always be known as the most important Methodist historical structure in the nation. To us, it's a Delmarva treasure.
And so it was. Francis Asbury showed up right here in Elkton, Maryland, to preach the word and get people excited about this new movement called Methodism. Well, the fire that he stirred up caught hold, and the Elkton Methodist Church came into being in 1799, 225 years ago this year. The church has had a few different locations. It certainly has changed in looks over the centuries, but its mission is still the same. Faith in Christ, commitment to worship, study, and mission, and a commitment to sharing the good news of the gospel with a hurting world. Through these doors, for 225 years, have come thousands of people. Sit back while a few of them share their stories with you now.
We first came in August of 1991, a couple months after we got married. We were invited by our good friend Rick Saracini, and we had been to a couple other churches in the community, and we came here and immediately knew. I feel like we immediately knew.
It just felt comfortable. It felt like, coming home in some respects, and the people were very welcoming and supportive of who we were and our budding family, if you will.
We didn't stop coming after the first time.
Yeah, we didn't.
When I first came to Elkton United Methodist Church was in the late 80s, and my wife and I at the time were looking for a church that we would feel comfortable raising children. We were church shopping, and I believe Elkton was our third church that we stopped at. When we stopped here, we stopped looking.
I first came to the church after we came back from being overseas in Japan. Mary Ann and I were both raised in different faiths and had not selected, if you will, a middle ground. And we came here and visited once. We went to a few other churches, and this one was close to home, and this one was friendly and welcoming. In fact, the pastor at the time, Dilio Mariotti, showed up on our doorstep a few days after our first visit and made us feel welcome enough to come back.
Well, we first began coming to Elkton United Methodist Church when we got married in 1979, and we've been coming ever since then. Our daughter was born and baptized here in 1983, and then she got married here in 2008, and our grandson was baptized here in 2011, and we've just been members for a really long time.
I first started attending Elkton United Methodist Church in 1999, and my very first experience was awesome, and I really felt like coming home when I walked into the church.
Well, I first came to the church about a year and a half ago, and I felt immediately welcomed. I've never been in a church as warm and welcoming as this church.
That was July 2023, and everyone was immediately welcoming. I had researched the church on their website and saw how active they were and all of the community outreach, and I thought, this looks like the place for us, and then we came and it was confirmed.
Years of me coming to Elkton United Methodist Church, some of the people who really impacted me and helped me grow in my faith were the Methodist men. Stan Cibola, Dan McCool, the music, Bob Bonnell. Those just three people that really stand out in my memory.
How much time do you have? Many. I mean, Rick Saracini was the one that actually invited us to come. I would say Gifford Biles was, the head usher at the time, and he welcomed everybody and made you feel like family immediately.
as soon as you hit the top of the stairs, there was Gift with a handshake and a smile and a greeting. So,
And then we sort of had our whole side of the church section that really has supported us and our family for 33 years. I mean, we could sit here and name them all, but just like our little clan.
They even supported us when we put our daughter in her baby seat under the pew. They would check on her as she sat there.
They didn't like that we put her on the floor.
They didn't like it. They accepted it, so we made room for everyone.
I haven't been coming as long as my wife has, but when I did start coming, I just decided to come. And then one of the big influences of my church experience was, remember Ken McCoy and Kevin White, they kind of invited me and asked me to be one of the nights out back here in the thing, and I've been doing that ever since, and I really enjoy that.
And I enjoyed seeing the doers and the workers of the church. I'll call them the Dan and Stan generation. Dan McCool and Stanley Sabula and several others of that era of United Methodist men. They might not have been as comfortable at a pulpit, but put a hammer or a saw or a wrench in their hand, and they were making the church work.
Many people in the church have impacted my life. Some of my most memorable ones are small groups that I belong to, my best friends in beginnings and my closest friends in my Sunday school class. Too many to mention, but they're all very important to me and very special friends.
One of the reasons I come is because my neighbor asked me one time, and I said, it just makes me feel good. Makes me feel good.
Well, Nancy, how are you?
I'm simply marvelous.
I know that you grew up as a member of the George family. You were one of 5 kids, and you grew up on land that's where the YMCA is now, right?
Correct. I was born in that house.
And then you moved into town on DeBow Street where the hospital is now.
Right.
You guys have a long history here. But I want to talk about your early history. I know your kids and your family went to Sunday school, so it wasn't in the church, though. And I think people will be fascinated to find out where you went to Sunday school.
Well, down on West Main Street where the courthouse is now, there was a little wooden house. And that was our first Sunday school house. Now they had parties in there other than just Sunday school, wedding receptions. It had 2 floors, not a real big house, of course. Had a kitchen, and that's where everybody started going to Sunday school.
So it was a building owned by the church?
Evidently it was.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I know, it was.
All right, and then after that?
After that, the county decided they needed a bigger courthouse. So they then evidently bought the little Sunday school house and built the courthouse. It started in 1939, they finished it in 1940. And from there, we bought a house, when you're facing the church, a house that was to the left, and made that into Sunday school rooms.
It was like an old Victorian house
Old
with big
Victorian
windows.
house.
I remember that.
Yes,
Yep.
yeah. Lots of room.
So some kids got over there. It was all for the kids. And then they came back after they grew up to come in here.
Yeah. I think it was mostly boys that
Okay.
went to that Sunday school.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, so I went there too. I'm just kidding, people. And then they decided to add on to the back of the church, and they built.
But before that, didn't you tell me at one point there was a time when all the Sunday school classes met around the sanctuary too?
Oh yeah, I'll get to that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We kind of outgrew this church to begin with.
Yeah.
Which was good
just the church building.
Right.
Okay.
And there weren't very many rooms downstairs.
Right.
So then, I guess I was like 12 or 13. My Sunday school room was then up where the choir loft is now.
Oh, how about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there was another group that had Sunday school at the same time in the last 2 pews of the church, right in the middle of the church.
Wow.
And
So they had to do something.
yeah, they had to do something.
And they built the wing behind the sanctuary.
Right,
But
exactly.
tell the people what that was, because they're going to be surprised. That wing. What was in that wing?
That wing was like Weldon Hall is now.
Exactly.
But we had a stage.
We had a stage, yes.
Yes.
Yep, and a kitchen off to
And
the
oh
side.
yeah, they did a lot of wedding receptions there. Santa Claus always came in.
Yep. So Weldon Hall came along, which was fabulous because it added more classrooms as well, and a great meeting space and a great place for dinners. And then, fast forward to the most recent times, we still needed more room, and we added the Wesley wing.
Exactly right.
So you have seen all of that.
I have.
And you saw, I mean, you just have seen the whole transformation of the church.
I have.
So you've seen a lot of things come and go in this church, and people come and go. Are there any memorable people that really touched your life? I know when you were young, some pastors really.
Well, the first one that I actually remember was Reverend Wheatley.
Right.
And his daughter and I were the same age, and we were really good friends. I thought Reverend Moore was, Gary Moore, I thought he was one that could touch your life very easily.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He did great things in this church.
He did.
Really great things.
And then you came along and kept it going.
Well, we tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tried.
And,
you did do it. You didn't just try, you did it.
Now, you've been here, like you say, a lot of different years. What things have you been involved in that time in the church?
Probably as little as possible, just kidding.
Oh, stop.
But, well, let's see, I can't even remember. I was a counter. I taught Sunday school, a couple different classes for a while. I was president of the Gleaners one time, and that was when they decided there wouldn't be any more Gleaners, and I had to be president at that time. But we had some little disagreements.
They had a great history.
Yeah.
You also were on telecare.
I was on telecare.
You did telecare ministry.
Yeah.
And faithful worship attender.
And as a child, yes, most of the time.
Yeah.
And as a child, I was in the MYF, which was Methodist Youth Fellowship.
Right.
And then at one point, we were sending some of the kids to Camp Pacomet.
Yes.
But the first time that I went was Camp Pacomet hadn't been bought, and the camp was held at Wesley College in Dover, Delaware.
Wow.
And they'd send 2 boys and 2 girls. And I remember my Sunday school teacher, Mrs. Strayhorn, she would pack little presents just for the other girl and I, Shirley Carter. So we would open one each day so we wouldn't get homesick.
Aww.
And then after they bought Camp Pacomet, I went there the first year. And boy, was it pretty rough.
Yeah.
We had to brush our teeth at the water fountain. We had no warm water to take showers, but we all had a great time.
I was going to say, you survived.
And we survived and had fun.
That's great. In the first days of Pacomet.
The very first
year
that it opened up.
Kids, it's fabulous. What a great ministry.
And it has come a long way.
Yes, it has. Yes, it has. So you clearly love this church, and you and your family love this church. And according to the records of the church, you are the longest attending member, because the other one on the list that's just above you is your sister.
Right.
She's the actual longest, but she hasn't been able to attend since she's not living here anymore. So congratulations to that.
Oh, well, thank you.
And it's quite fun sitting on the back pew now.
Now everybody knows how old I am.
Oh, hey, you should be proud. That's wonderful. So you love this church. You've been a part of it your whole life. If you were to invite someone to come to the church, what would you tell them about it?
I would just tell them they don't know what they're missing until they get here. And that way, maybe that might encourage them, and hopefully it would. And I would tell them what fun I've had all my life in this church. And hopefully that would encourage them.
Very good. Thank you for talking to me.
Is that the end?
That's it.
Oh, that was easy.
Through my life, I've been challenged with some very unlikely challenges through the loss of two lovely wives, and through in this church with the body of believers, the church family, the pastoral care that we've received through all this, my faith has only grown and grown in my love for the Lord, and in this church, you can see that with the people here. You can see how the church and the people reflect the love of God.
Oh gosh, we've grown so spiritually so much over the course of our marriage, but it really has to do with this church. I mean, we have just felt loved and supported and given the space we needed, especially because we were so young when we started attending, to really grow together in God, and the fellowship here, and just the tangible supporting hands around us at all times. We just feel, I don't know, I just
everything.
felt like,
It's all been grounded here, and the fellowship and the support, and all the people that, like you said, that we sat in that side of the church with, just became our extended family. We're not from the Maryland area, neither of us, and so this church really became our family. Mm-hmm. And everyone opened their arms and welcomed us and allowed us to just grow and become the people that we are, and raise our daughter in the church, and they became surrogate aunts and uncles to our daughter. And so it was just a very comfortable, natural thing for us. And then we've grown spiritually and in our faith through the leadership that we've had. Gary Moore, Karen Bonnell, and now Eric Warner, the pastors that we've had have just been exceptional.
By being a part of small groups give you the opportunity to bond and build close relationships with others who believe in the same as you and who love Jesus Christ and attend church on a regular basis. I try to invite people on a regular basis to come to church with me, and I invite them because of the joy I experience here at church, and I believe that they would also experience joy, and so inviting people is very easy, and I do that by just saying, would you like to come to church and experience the joy and love of Jesus?
If I was going to invite someone to join me in worship on a Sunday here or any day here, the invitation would be the sanctuary is so warm, the people are so loving, you're going to feel the presence of God. A lot of the feeling comes through the elements in our sanctuary. For me, the stained glass and red carpet and just the beauty of it all, and the messages we receive, and the camaraderie that we'll share, and that we do share. That's what I would ask. That's how I would invite someone.
If I were to invite someone to come into our church, I would say, first of all, just come in and greet the person next to you. I hope they greeted you first, but be sure to stretch your hand out to them as well. We have a great group of people here, and they're the ones who keep me coming back week after week. And I would invite anybody who comes in to act like you own the room, act like every person next to you is a longtime friend, and that's how it will feel to you and to them.
Fellowship.
Absolutely, the fellowship. You're going to feel, that's one.
Music. The music has always been exceptional here. Mm-hmm. And the sermons. You can't discount the quality and the care and the time that our pastors put into developing a sermon that speaks to you on any given Sunday. There's a piece of it that just kind of reaches out and touches you and says, I'm here, remember.
And we have great conversations about the sermons quite often, and it helps us reflect as individuals, but also as a couple, and so.
If I was to invite another person to join me in the church, it would be because this is the most welcoming and happy congregation. We laugh during sermons. It's just an amazing church, and I know anyone would love it. When I lost my husband to nursing home, and COVID hit, and I couldn't even go see him, God gave me this church. And I have never felt more welcomed and at home. And I thank you, Elkton United Methodist Church, for being the church you are. Okay. It's, you don't know. It's like losing my husband to the nursing home, and then COVID hit and I couldn't even go see him. It's like God gave me you and this amazing church.
As you can see, this church has welcomed a wonderful variety of people over the years who've all found it to be a special place. Elkton United Methodist remains active, providing uplifting worship, wonderful music, ongoing educational opportunity, and an abundance of outreach ministries into the community and beyond. The church supports the community through food drives, mission team volunteers, monthly blood drives, and special collections like Angel Tree, college care packages, school teacher supplies, and more. The church also supports the town of Elkton and reaches out through their activities like the Elkton Fall Festival, and is also proud to be a member of GEMA, the Greater Elkton Area Ministerial Alliance. There are also many ways to serve and find fellowship in the church, singing in the chancel choir or ringing with the handbell choirs, enjoying fellowship in Joy Ministry, just older youth, or the monthly men's breakfast, hosting and enjoying the hospitality hour after worship, or serving as a greeter to welcome people into worship. Those who can no longer be at church have a special place in the hearts of our church members, especially those sick at home and in nursing care facilities. They are prayed for and visited, but they also have the unique opportunity to worship with the church virtually. One of the things the church offers them, and anyone who cannot worship in person because they might be traveling, is the ability to watch the worship services online through a robust video ministry and great tech team volunteers. The live stream of worship services is a vital part of the outreach mission of Elkton United Methodist Church. On this 225th anniversary, we celebrate all of the ways God has sustained this church, challenged it, encouraged it, and directed it. In the years ahead, as Elkton United Methodist Church hold fast to its mission to be a place to know Jesus, be known by Jesus, and make him known to others, may the church open itself to God's leading, trusting that his faithfulness in the past 225 years will continue all the days ahead. On behalf of the people of Elkton United Methodist Church, I thank you for your attention to this video and for your attendance to this very special celebration tonight. I encourage everyone to come back tomorrow at 10 a.m. for a wonderful worship service, and if you're not able to be here in person, be sure to join us virtually. It won't be the same without you. Happy anniversary to all.